But of course that's tapped, so we're going to slam a Maul of the Skyclaves, goes directly on the Luminarch Aspirant. The counter goes on Luminarch Aspirant as well, and on turn 3 we're swinging with a 5/5 flying first strike Luminarch Aspirant. Greetings, everyone. I am glad you are here, and I am glad to be here. This time, our jank is going to be in Standard. For those of you who have consumed my content any amount, you likely know just how much I love Relic Robber. Oh my word. The flavor on this card, where you have a Goblin Rogue come in and steal something, but only causes more havoc by it being a cursed item, and then the Goblin Rogue causing that player problems by leaving an item behind that causes damage to you and everything like that. Very, very cool. But I also really love cards that can take over the game on their own, individually powerful cards that are janky. I mean, we've all seen the Okos and Omnaths and things of this world where they're just so stupidly powerful that, yeah, okay, they take over the game in a tier 1 way, and now everybody has to play that card. But cards like Relic Robber, if you don't do something about this card, it will also run away with the game while also being a really hilariously fun time to do and pull off. So here we are, trying to see just how good we can make Relic Robber. The primary problem with Relic Robber often is you can almost always get one hit in because the opponent won't be able to block it. It has haste. You know, they don't know what's coming in, so you hit them. But then they just hold back and block it. It's a 3-mana 2/2, so it's already off curve a little bit. So getting those 0/1s to pile up and deal tons of damage to the opponent can sometimes be a problem. One of the ways you can do that is with removal. You just remove your opponent's blockers, right? So in order to do that, we have some shocks. We have some Roil Eruptions. We have some Spikefield Hazards and shocks. Or, I'm sorry. Bonecrusher Giants. Shocks, Spikefield Hazards, and Roil Eruptions. Please forgive me. I misspoke there. But we also have some Skyclave Apparitions, which does a little bit of Banisher Priest style action. So that's one of the best ways. Just clear the way for it. Another way is to make a creature unblockable. Another target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn, right? So we just get to keep getting in with Relic Robber and keep stacking up all of these 0/1s that will deal extra damage to our opponent turn over turn over turn, right? But then another way is to give it evasion, right? So then we have some Maul of the Skyclaves to do that, give it flying and first strike and 2/2. So it can be a 4/4 flying haste first strike, should all of this happen in the same turn for some reason. And that is all trying to make this card good. The other way is we just make it bigger, right? Luminarch Aspirant, putting counters on it can both make it more resistant to removal, but also just harder to block and get out of the way, right? So you can see the vast majority of this deck is built around making Relic Robber better. Filling out the deck, we have some Fearless Fledglings, so that if we are flooding out, this is getting flying and much bigger all on its own. And then it also pairs pretty well with Luminarch Aspirant, where we can just, be throwing counters around. Having a few more creatures is good. And the last one is, of course, Outlaws Merriment. Mainly because I want to jam this card in every possible deck I can, but secondarily because it does give us some ways of rebuilding from board sweepers and things like that in the really long game if we end up in controlling matchups, but also allows us some opportunity to go wide if we have been able to get their life total down. This can be a way of finishing it. It's quite possible, this is currently a 4 of, it's quite possible this is better off as like a 2 of, again, for the more controlling matchup specifically. And we would rather have maybe a 1-drop more aggressive creature or something like that. But for now, I want to play Outlaws Merriment. So here we are. All right, that said, without further ado, let's get to some games and see if we can win a few, shall we? All right, folks, here we are up against Yisk Yisk. And this hand is iffy. We don't have any of our Relic Robbers, and we don't have any way of our helping our Relic Robbers, but we do have lands and spells, and they're fine ones, so we're going to hang on to it. Opponent pops down a Fabled Passage, immediately cracks it, doesn't want to have to wait around. I can respect that, opponent. We're going to go ahead and go with a Temple of Triumph. And, oh, hey, looky there. That's a Relic Robber. That's the kind of card we're looking for. Heck yeah, man. Feels good. All right, well, we're going to immediately fire off a Fearless Fledgling. It's kind of nice when this draws removal from our opponent's hand. Shredded Sails. All right. Is our opponent going to kill it? Timuret. Timmy calls dead things, mills over a whole bunch of lands. And yeah, I mean, folks, we're going to go for it. We're robbing relics for a reason. Yep. Opponent takes the damage from their own relic. They mill over even more lands. Oh, my word. Well, I mean, in fairness, our opponent likely did not want to draw this many lands. This, as bad as this Timuret Calls the Dead was for our opponent, it likely saved our opponent the game there. So let's Fearless Fledgling. Pop it down. Get our birdies into the air and grow them up just a wee bit. Opponent going to take another damage from the Relic Robber. Sure. We're going to hold up a shock. Opponent gets to scry 0, gain 0. A little bit of a sad Timuret Calls the Dead. But again, you know, as tilted as our opponent likely is, that sequence of draws likely would have killed our opponent for sure. All right. Though, admittedly, I think they're dead anyway, so. Yeah, down to 4. We're going to slam an Outlaws Merriment. This is likely the nail in the coffin. Even if they can sweep our board somehow, like Swamp, Ritual of Soot or something. The Outlaws Merriment is just going to rebuild the board every single turn, you know? Yep, opponent gets in. Gonna make everybody sacrifice. Stop that bleeding. But it isn't gonna matter. Yeah. Yep. Good game, opponent. Good game. All right, folks. We're back. Up against B Water. Good luck, B Water. Yeah, I don't know. This hand is sketchy, folks, but we're on the play. I don't really want to mulligan it on the play because the hand isn't bad. I think we're just going to fire off the Fearless Fledgling right away. Wow, our opponent must be doing something relatively controlling over there. Yeah, on second thought, then, I guess we're just going to go ahead and Luminarch Aspirant, so that if there are a bunch of counterspells, I would really rather have the Luminarch Aspirant survive than the Fearless Fledgling. The Fearless Fledgling only gets counters when we have land drops. This gets counters every single turn. This can put counters anywhere. The Fearless Fledgling can only put counters on itself, right? All right, B-Water just takes 3 damage on the attacks. We're going to go ahead and try to cast a Fearless Fledgling here. They could have, like, Dwyer Disruption that would spell pierce it. They do. Okay. Or censor it, I guess. But that's okay. I think our opponent is unlikely to have a lot of 1 toughness creatures, so we're actually just going to put down the Spikefield Cave as a land drop here so it's tapped, and develop our mana in this manner. Wishing Well. Coming on down, going to scry 2. This card can be sacrificed for 4 mana to draw 2 as well. They scry top. Man, that's scary. Holy cow, folks. Luminarch Aspirant going to get another counter. We're going to attack if they let us. They likely, yeah. I was going to say, it would not be uncommon for them to have some kind of bounce spell. So we're going to go ahead and just cast Luminarch Aspirant right back out. Pass turn. Opponent puts another island into play. Sleep of the Dead. Tap target creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Sure. That one can be escaped, folks. Not a card you see escaped very often. But it is a strong card if your opponent is trying to rely on very few threats. Alright, well. Let's see what our opponent has to say. We're going to shock their face. Mystical Disputes. We will pay for the Mystical Dispute. There's no reason to let the Bonecrusher Giant be countered when, you know, it doesn't, we wouldn't be able to cast the other half anyway. We could cast the other one, potentially, but... yeah, let's just do this. We're going to spread the counters out so that they can't just bounce one creature and remove most of our power, right? So Luminarch Aspirant going to get its own counter this time. One of the powerful things about Luminarch Aspirant is that it can distribute the counters. But, you know, we're going to choose not to this time. Gonna try and Bone Crush Bewater's face. Drop them to 10 points of life. See what they have to say about it. They allow it. Fair enough. Let's go to combat. We spread the counters out. Luminarch Aspirant going up to 4 power, as is Bonecrusher Giant. They do Stern Dismissal, our Luminarch Aspirant. Not surprising. So we're going to go ahead and go to combat. Attack with Bonecrusher Giant. Opponent drops to 6. So we're then going to Luminarch Aspirant. Our opponent knows about it, folks. They allow it to resolve. We are then going to play a Needleverge Pathway and Bonecrusher Giant, so we can play around some number of soft counters, and we are going to pass. Opponent, Reign of Revelations, needs to draw 3 and discard a card. Now up to temporarily 6 cards in hand, but will discard down to 5, but has the Sleep of the Dead in the bin as well. Don't forget, folks, Luminarch Aspirant and one of the Bonecrusher Giants is lethal, so they have to handle 2 separate threats. They can flash back Sleep of the Dead to tap down 1 Bonecrusher Giant, but if they do that, they take 2 damage from it. So then they drop to 4, making one of the Bonecrusher Giants lethal. Yeah, they elect to not do that, and they let us go straight to combat. We're going to, of course, put the counter on Luminarch Aspirant itself again. See what our opponent has to say. Going to give all of our creatures -2/-0, opponent. Is that possible? That is one of the dual face lands. Yes, the Byneen Veil. The problem with that is they drop to 2, and we have Roil Eruption, which is lethal if they do that. So you need to have something else. Nope. And Bewater does not have it. Good game, Bewater. Good game. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're up against Disco 00, and yeah, I don't think we can keep this. Really want to, but don't have enough lands to justify. We're going to keep this. Send back, I guess, the Outlaws Merriment. We need to have some way of interacting with our opponent. The Spikefield Hazard is not great, but on the off chance our opponent is playing the Cobra, we need to be able to kill it, or, you know, we're just going to lose, right? So, sometimes your options won't always be good, but if they're your only option, what are you going to do? Like, that's just what you got to do. Opponent has a, starts on a Ralgrant Triumph, proceeds to play a Fabled Passage, immediately cracks it for a Forest. But of course that's tapped, so we're going to slam a Maul of the Skyclaves, goes directly on the Luminarch Aspirant. The counter goes on Luminarch Aspirant as well. And on turn 3, we're swinging with a 5/5 flying first strike Luminarch Aspirant that will grow next turn unless answered. Not too shabby, if you ask me. That said, it may not mean much, folks. If our well, okay, our opponent goes with Chainweb Arachneer, which, well, we can't unfortunately run out both Spikefield Hazards and get the landfall counter on this, because if we play this, it spends our red mana. Then we make a land drop and it's white, but we definitely we need to get rid of this Chainweb Arachneer, because first of all, it can keep coming back, which is really annoying. So we need to exile it. But second of all, this puts them down to 10. Or, well, 9, as it were, right? So if they have a board sweeper, yeah, we're probably dead. But our opponent's deck is not the... Folks, we got him! Yeah, and our opponent didn't even give us a chance to do the cool thing, which was cast a Relic Robber and hit them for 7, 8, and 9, 10 right here. We had the lethal, so feels good. Good game, Discount. Good game. All right, folks, we're back here looking at Sanctioned Thievery. And I'm not going to lie, I definitely think the deck can be improved. We ran into a number of games where things didn't go quite the way we hoped they might, based on just different stimulus, right? It's quite possible we want some number of aggressive 1-drops, right? It's also possible maybe we want some more shocks and stuff. We're currently running just 22 lands, but also remember, folks, we have 4 Spikefield Hazards. So we're actually on 26, and we did flood out with a certain amount of regularity. I'm not sure there's much we can do about that. Sometimes bad luck just beats you down. But I do think we could try and get a little more aggressive, especially since we have Subira, that is mainly here for Relic Robber, admittedly, but also can, it can scoot down or scoot some of our smaller creatures through maybe in the late game if we had them. We were intending to use Subira to get the Outlaws Merriment through, but they also seemed really slow for what the deck was trying to accomplish. Maybe if we went down to Outlaws Merriment and maybe up to Skyclave Apparition, we could still play semi-mid-rangey and have a little more game, because we would have more hard removal against the earlier game threats. One of the cards that's kind of difficult for this deck to deal with is actually the Rankle Master of Pranks, because we get to hit with Relic Robber. Yes! Give them a 0/1, and then they hit us back, make us sacrifice a creature, and they sacrifice the 0/1, right? So it's just absolutely brutal against Relic Robber, the arch enemy of Relic Robber. So having more answers to Rankle is very, very, very good, and likely better than Outlaws Merriment in general. It also gives us the added advantage of being able to get Omnath as well as Cobra. Particularly, we can get Cobra on the play. If we are on the play, land. They go on turn 2, they go Cobra. On turn 3, we go land Skyclave Apparition. And that really slows our opponent down while advancing our own board. Very good. So that's one of the changes we might make. But what changes might you make to improve the deck? Let me know down below. We're going to be playing this on stream, and I'm not confident that this is the correct 60 to bring. And I could use your help kind of refining the list maybe if you would be so generous as to help me in that way. On that note, I have a Twitch channel, folks. That's where I do most of my content. And I'd love to have you come out and hang out. We do a lot of chat interactions and stuff. I like to get to know people, and I'd like to get to know you too. So pop out and see me, and we can have a good discussion, maybe even about this deck. It would be great if you also love Boros Relic Robber nonsense. We could. I'm sure we'd get along. So anyway, it was great having you, and I appreciate you tuning in. I'll catch you next time.